Hello, my name is Sonny Martinez. I am 12 years old. I weigh almost 70 pounds, and I'm going to tell you a story about Snake Girl. In the mountains of Guatemala, there was an old man and an old woman. Gray was their hair, wrinkled were their faces, and toothless were their smiles. They were as happy as two old people could be, except they had not had any children, and this gave them great sadness. Well, what happened one night when the old couple huddled near their warm stove that they heard a strange sound at the front door. The old man opened the door, and what do you think he found on the doorstep? Of course, you probably guessed it. It was a watermelon. Not like any watermelon you had ever seen before. This watermelon was shining, radiating shafts of golden light, as far as you could see, into the nighttime sky. The old man was blinded for a moment. Then, squinting, he grabbed his skinny arms around the huge melon and brought it inside. The old lady was so amazed that her frizzy hair stood straight up, and her mouth opened so wide that a pigeon passing by the window considered making its home in there. She grabbed her knife and carefully opened that golden melon. And what do you think they found inside? Of course, you probably guessed, it was a little baby. Snake. This little brown snake had golden eyes, a sharp red tongue that flipped in and out of its mouth like a teeny lightning bolt. The old couple was shocked and afraid. Then the little snake spoke to them in a sweet but childish voice. Mother, Father, please, do not fear me. Take care of me. Build me a hut and bring me food each day, and in time, believe me, I'll be the joy of your life. And so the hut was built, and the food was brought, and 5 years passed, until one day the old woman opened the door to the hut to give the snake its food. And great was her surprise when she saw on the ground in front of her a large, empty snakeskin. And greater was her surprise when she looked up and saw, standing at the back of the hut, a smiling little girl. She knew this little girl had emerged from the snake's skin, and she knew in her heart that this was the daughter she had always been waiting for. The two of them embraced silently. Now let me tell you about this little girl. Her body was brown. The clothing she wore was made completely out of snake skin. Her long black hair was tied in the snake braids. Her eyes were golden, and they lit up the hut like little lamps. She was small, but very strong, and unbelievably fast. And for her, they chose the name Snake Girl. There are many tales told about this wonderful girl. One of them goes like this. Snake Girl and her cousin were walking in the forest. They saw a big deer standing at the far edge of a meadow. Her cousin said, "What's this?" He took out an arrow, silently put it in his bow. "Pull back the string!" And the arrow flew silently through the air. At that same moment, Snake Girl ran across the meadow. She passed the arrow. She took out her knife and killed the deer. Her cousin's arrow was still flying through the air. She took the deer and skinned it and stretched the skin out to dry. Her cousin's arrow continued to fly through the air. She took the meat of that deer and cooked it into a soup. Then she drank the soup, went back to the drawing skin, and stitched it up into a sack to hold her arrows. At that same moment, she grabbed her cousin's arrow, which was still flying through the air, and she called across the meadow to him, "Hey, what are you trying to do? Poke holes in my bag?" Snake Girl. She was as brave as she was fast. Here's another tale they tell about her. Listen. say there was once a village that was plagued by the worst monster that ever cursed this world. This monster was worse than the bizarre, bouncing eyeball boy from Brazil. And more disgusting than the slippery, slimy tongue man of San Salvador. This monster I'm telling you about was so fearsome. People far and wide spoke only of him in a whisper. They called him Dog's Breath. Dog's Breath. He was awful to look at, that's for sure. They say it looked like a giant bush with stubby, hairy legs. His teeth resembled chipped green glass, and his skin was made of a patchwork of hair, of flesh, bones, and mud. He loved to eat children. He was fond of eating old people, too, since they were so easy to catch. But what was most nauseating about this beast was that a stink rose from his body in curling yellow clouds. And the stink poisoned the air and made the entire country smell absolutely like dog's breath. His deeds were terrible, and his history was murderous. No one knew when or who they would attack, and as try as they might, no one could stop the stinking beast. But they tried, oh yes! Strong-armed warriors rushed at him, with blades so sharp they cut the sky as they ran, and the sky would bleed blue blood. But when the eyes of the sword would see who it was going to hit, the sword itself would scream, "Ah!" Such was the power and the fear that surrounded that monster they called Dog's Breath. Well, if heroes couldn't destroy the monster, who could? Only one person. The people called her Snake Girl. And though she came, the little girl with brown skin, braided hair, and golden eyes. She listened to all their stories concerning the monster. Behind her golden eyes, the plan unfolded itself. She knew exactly what to do. She made a large, hard, round cake. She frosted the top and bottom with honey butter. She wove a string made from some of her own black hair, and she tied one end around the cake. The other end she tied to a branch of a tree that was just outside the cave of the beast. Then she pushed the cake so it swung back and forth like a tasty pendulum, and she waited for the monster to emerge. There was a stirring in the cave. She could hear the monster sniffing. Then a slimy green tongue emerged, feeling in all directions for the cake. The girl gave the cake a push. Again, it swung back and forth, back and forth. The huge tongue then whipped through the air, blindly trying to catch the tasty treat. Again, she pushed the cake harder, and again the monster's tongue reached unsuccessfully forward. But this time, Snake Girl jumped out from behind the tree and grabbed the tongue with all her might and strength. Immediately, there was a silence in the cave. Then the monster moaned. Uh-oh. Slowly he emerged from the dark hole in the mountain. He looked hideous, frightening, disgusting, and he was a bit quite annoyed, because his green tongue was securely in a tight grip of Snake Girl. Let me go, his God's breath. Freely, or you will suffer. Snake studied him carefully and said, I will not let you go. There has been too much killing, too much fear. This is the end. The amazing girl held on tighter. Dog's Breath looked straight into the girl's eye. He started to shake and to wibble, to wobble and to jiggle. He hollered and hissed. He grabbed with his fist. But what could he do? The girl would not let go of his tongue. His eyes began burning as hot as the sun itself, but still she did not let go. Finally, he screeched a terrible scream that must have even frightened the stars. And he fell, as if dead, on the ground in front of the child. It was then that Snake Girl noticed the mask. It was not a monster in front of her, but was a huge mask made of dead animals and stuck together with the tacky sap of trees. And now before her very eyes, this mask was falling apart. What had been so strong and frightening was now a wreck, a tattered and broken shadow of where it used to be. As she looked on in amazement, she noticed that the core of the monster was alive and innocent. The core was smooth, it was small. And what was the center of the monster? It was a little boy. He looked up at her with a sad and a confused face. With her golden eyes, you could see his life and history. She saw that when he was a little child, his parents were too angry and too busy to love him. She saw that he ran broken-hearted to the mountains, afraid to be with people any longer. She saw that one day he heard people coming towards him, and he made a mask to frighten them away. But it didn't work, and so he made a bigger mask and a bigger mask until it covered his whole body. And it was such an amazing mask that in time he forgot there was a mask at all. He completely believed he was a monster. And now it was all over. The monster's mask was gone. And there before him was a little girl holding out her hand. The golden eyes of the girl sparkled as she said, "Home, little guy. You need a home. Come with me. I'll give you a home. Food, little guy. You need food. Come with me. I'll give you food. And a bath, little guy. You'll need a bath. You know what? You stink! Just like dog's breath." The little boy rose, took her hand, and the two of them walked together back to the home of the girl. And so it is, my friends, that you'll probably hear lots of stories of that girl named Snake Girl, but you shall never again hear another tale concerning that dreadful monster named Dog's Breath.
Nice job.
Now, does anyone have any questions?
Thanks for raising your hand, guys.
Only two?
People might think I'm more sunny. You can call on someone now.
Haley?
Do you know what happened to Dog's Breath?
Of course. Did you listen carefully?
That he got.
That he's probably been held on so tightly that he died. Probably.
The monster part, okay.
I was gonna let you know that was awesome. No, I mean like. Did time the girl, the snakeweed in the second story actually cut open the heart, because that's the first thing you cut out.
What?
The heart.
I didn't say anything about a heart.
The deer, maybe he's thinking?
Oh, I wasn't talking about any heart.
Do you have a question about his story?
Why is it called Dog Breath?
Probably because of how hideous he is.
It's stinky.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He smells like dog breath.
How did you think of the character Snake Girl?
Great.
How did you think of her? How did you come up with the character? She's a really neat character you came up with.
I didn't actually make this up.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
I know
he's
what it
memorized that from
It was on one of those videos he watches in his comics, right? Like, no, not a video, I think like a CD, right?
Yes, that's CD.
So, I'm sorry, so who wrote that?
Izzy Tuwinski.
That's great. You did a great job.
You can do this for children when you grow up.
Haley, if you have something to say, you have to raise your hand, please. Thank you.
Josh?
excited. I like the action you did. Her hair rolls up.
Simon.
I think that you should bring this to the library and do this for younger children.
This is the CD.
Yeah, you're a really good storyteller.
Yeah.
Have you told other stories?
Yes.
Are you gonna make it anything more?
Maybe not for your class.
Oh.
So is that it?
Any other questions, guys? Let's give a big round of applause, you guys. That was